Good afternoon and welcome to the College of Continuing and Professional Studies webinar, DEI Focused Retention Strategies. Thank you so much for joining us. Next slide, please. It's a pleasure to have you all here this afternoon. My name is Shanta Pillai and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. If you have future questions about this webinar or other programs we offer, the college contact information will be on the last slide of this presentation. I'm delighted to introduce the topic for today's webinar, DEI Focused Retention Strategies. There are many challenges to navigate as we begin to identify and remove the biases and barriers to a more diverse workplace. Without a well-thought-out strategy, we may wind up losing the talent we want to retain. If you want to go beyond mere representation and create a workplace that is welcoming and inclusive, where everyone can feel seen, be heard, participate, and thrive, wanting to take the right steps. During this webinar, we'll look at the current research around retention, effective retention steps you can take in your workplace, how to best support your managers and supervisors in creating an environment that leads to retention, and lastly, making sure everyone in our workplace feels valued and included. It's a pleasure to introduce the presenter for today's webinar, Patricia Izek. Patricia, thank you so much again for sharing wisdom on this topic, and I will pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Shanta. I really appreciate your assistance and welcome everyone. I am so happy to be here with you today. I'm going to introduce myself in a second, but first let's go through the agenda really quickly so that you can sort of get a feel of what we're doing here today. So I just welcomed you as it's Shanta. I'm going to do a short land acknowledgement. I'm going to talk about the significance of retention, its importance, its cost when we don't retain individuals, the overall team well-being, the morale, and the institutional knowledge that goes along and that we can keep with retention. I'm going to touch upon the topics of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how each of them play a role in retention, and also share with you those retention strategies in the employee lifespan. So looking closely at the postings, at the actual search process, and the offer when it is given to a candidate, and maybe even a candidate isn't granted in the offer, how you can work with that as well. We'll look at some onboarding things, assignments, promotions, how they come into play, and mentoring. I will recap for you and then share resources with you as well. So that's our sort of an outline of our agenda for today and this time that we will be spending together this afternoon. So moving on to that land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the University of Minnesota Twin Cities is built within the traditional homelands of the Dakota people. It is important to acknowledge the people on whose land we live, learn, and work as we seek to improve and strengthen our relations with our tribal nations. We also acknowledge that words are not enough. We must ensure that our institution provides support, resources, and programs that increase access to all aspects of higher education for our American Indian students, staff, faculty, and community members. I believe that the fact that you're here with me today for this webinar is an act that you are willing to say words are not enough, and I'm going to be here and learn more. So thank you for being here today. So I want to say a little bit about myself, and I like to do this with some pictures. I think it's also important for you to know where it is that I come from. So I am a Gopher, actually. I got my master's degree here from CEHD, and this is my second time as a staff member here at this institution. I joined back in the early 90s as in the Office of the General Counsel as a lead paralegal in that office, and then rejoined the university in 2015 as a D&I recruiter. Presently, I am the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Consultant for the Office of Human Resources here at the Twin Cities campus. I love art, and one of my favorite artists is Frida Kahlo, and I share with you one of her self-portraits, which happens to be one of my favorites of hers. I love it, I think, because she's wearing the rebozo, the shawl, so beautifully, and I love the way it lays on her shoulders. The other, you could see this Coca-Cola So this was a campaign that resurfaces every so often from Coca-Cola, but it speaks to the importance of representation, which is why I took a photograph of this. My first name is Patricia, but my maiden name is Sanchez. And what surprised me about this was that I found this in the western metro area of Minneapolis, out in Medina, of all places. There was a Target there, and Target had this display of bottles. And of course, I'm walking through, and it's human nature. You look for your name, right? So I found Patricia rather quickly, although it's not as popular of a name as it was when I was a child. But never did I expect to see Sanchez, especially not where I was. But I did, and I took a picture of it. Sorry, Coca-Cola, I didn't buy it, but I snapped a picture. And I think it does speak to the importance of representation. And that is something that is a strategy for retention. So that's why I wanted to share that one with you. The other is a picture of my bird, who is turning 22 and would be graduating from college very soon if it were a child. But here, the reason I wanted to share this picture with you is because this speaks to benefits, another strategy for retention. So I wanted to share a little bit about myself, but at the same time, keep it relevant to our conversation here today. So with that, a bit about myself, and we shall move on. So thank you for entertaining that with me. So we're going on to that significance of retention, right? It is important, period. Exit interviews demonstrate people leave for various reasons. Some we have control over, or no control over, and are personal to the employee. But others we can help influence in the way that we work with an employee during their time with us. So we have to be conscious of what is it that employees want, right? And it changes with time. We want flexibility. Yes, since COVID-19, working from home has become an extremely significant ask of employees in all industries. There are some where it will be an impossible request to grant because it requires the person to do the actual work in person. And those, I think, employees understand. But for others, that flexibility is truly important. Great if you can put that on your postings. Benefits, and as I shared with you in that previous slide, right? A few years back, the university did a poll and they found that their employees were really wanting pet insurance. Pet insurance became something that the Office of Human Resources looked into and was able to grant pet insurance for employees here at the university. Now, it does not extend to my feathered friend, but it does cover your dogs and your cats, and it may cover some others. I'm not exactly sure, but that was an important benefit. And what that speaks to is that you have to ask your employees what is important to them. That list may change, and it's something that you can address periodically. Most employees definitely want to be seen, they want to be heard, and they want to be valued. And that's a real important aspect for employers to recognize, for HR professionals to recognize, for supervisors and managers to recognize. And often we don't realize how what we don't say, what we don't do sends a message in this arena for our employees. Most employees want career development, right? And they want satisfaction that what they're doing is actually moving them towards some sort of development or on their path to increasing their knowledge. And that can be attained in many, many ways. They want to be rewarded, right? And rewards, yes, of course, with compensation, that is extremely important for individuals, but it's also recognition, if recognition is part of what you do. And it's also by granting opportunities in an equitable manner so that everybody has that same sort of opportunity to advance and develop their careers while they are with you. Mentoring. Mentoring has been proven to be an avenue to create an inclusive environment where people really begin to sense that they belong there. It creates true, strong relationships with not only your peers, but often with those that may be above you in status. So mentoring is a very important way for you to help individuals see that they are valued and hopefully that they will stay with you. In essence, we want good relationships and mutual respect. And there are many more that we could add to this list, but you won't know unless you ask. And that's something that's very important. We can't assume that we know what employees want. Just remember that old saying that there's nothing about me without me is for me, right? So if you remember that, you will realize that how important that ask is to present to your employees. And that could be done in a survey, it could be done at a meeting, or however it is that's best, that will best suit you and your business. So let's talk a little bit about the cost of retention, or lack of retention rather, right? Turnover is extremely costly, and we have statistics that say that replacing an employee can cost between 6 to 9 months of the employee's salary, or 1.5 to 2 times their annual salary. So it can be very costly for a company, an institution, to replace someone. And it's something to consider, that it really, and when you consider the fact that it takes time for an employee to really get into the groove, right? To really become that employee that is adding value to your company, to your corporation, to your team, to your institution, that to lose someone, especially quickly, it's just even a double impact for you, because you really haven't even reaped the benefits of their being there. You will need to repost the position. That sometimes will cost you some money. You will need to interview new candidates. And if you think of what that costs in gathering the individuals who are going to help you to do this, because they have to set time aside in order to help in that process. You will have to onboard the new individual again, and then the training that's involved, the time to train and the cost to train, and maybe even higher attempt during the entire process. So definitely this is a costly, and you can see why they come to these conclusions of 6 to 9 months of the salary, or up to 2 times the annual salary. So it is something to keep in the back of your mind, that it is to the benefit of an organization to retain your employee. And it is more than just about the money. And that's what I want to speak to next. It's about the well-being and the morale of the team. Low retention affects the whole team's well-being, morale, and productivity. You may be losing your high performers, your innovators, your problem solvers, your team players, and even that diverse individual with the different perspectives that you worked so hard to bring in. Who's going to be left? So it is a question for you to really consider, and to really pay attention to those individuals that are showing signs to you that there is something going on. We have to remember also, right? We're all better. Well, yes, we're all better when we're all better, period, right? I believe it was Senator Wellstone who said that, and I always misquote it, but I think many of you may remember that. And when morale is down and productivity is down, you have to rely on others to come in and help, right? So then that also just brings the burden continues to be shared. So to keep in mind that retention is a really good goal for you. And also the knowledge that you may lose. The institutional knowledge is extremely costly and very difficult to replace. The International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions offers the following categories for institutional knowledge. One is the explicit, the tangible knowledge. Those are your documents, your records, reports, etc., that can be viewed, stored, and transferred. That's fine. That stays. It belongs to the institution, to the company. And what it is, though, you'll lose time for someone new to have to interpret it and figure out what's going on, right? But that, at least you have that stays. But the implicit, the intangible, That's what's difficult to lose. It's those personal anecdotes, the context, the skills, and then the intuition that can be transferred person to person through mentorship or training. If those individuals leave, that's what you're losing. So it's really important to try and retain individuals for that reason. You can foster retention by providing employees with the information and the formal, informal training required to facilitate their success and promote engagement. Loss of individuals with institutional knowledge can lead to less productivity and less efficiency. And it's sad to see individuals go who are valued, who have made a difference where they are. And granted, we all realize that people need to move on at certain times in their lives, but I think it's the way that they leave that is really important also to focus on, meaning the reason for their leaving. So I want to just shift a little now and begin to talk to you about the diversity, the equity, and the inclusion in the retention that becomes significant, which is why we're here today. Diversity, it can be so broad. So, but it's individuals from different backgrounds, ethnicities, abilities, lived experiences, and perspectives. And you can Google the word and you will find so many definitions for diversity. But it is to keep in mind that it is those missing voices that you're focusing on when you're trying to search for diversity. Diverse teams are proven to be more innovative and productive when working together. There are many studies that have shown this, starting in 2015 with the McKinsey report on diversity. It may not be easier though. You know, people often think, oh my gosh, this is what we want. We're going to really bring different perspectives. We're going to form a diverse team. But the reality of it is that it's not easier to work with all these different perspectives. And you have to be ready, and everybody there has to be ready. So in order to retain individuals, you have to make sure that the team is ready for it. In the end, it will be more creative and more fulfilling just because of the different perspective and the different voices that will be there, and hopefully the team's readiness for it and being able to truly listen, to incorporate, to really create that sense of belonging for everyone there. Most employees want to work where all are welcome and treated equitably. So that is what we're hearing now. People want to join a team that looks different from themselves. They want to be part of a team that's going to be more creative, that's going to be thinking of different ways to solve problems. When managed well, it will lead to less turnover and better retention. And when managed well, which means that you may have to invest a little in making sure that your managers and your supervisors are well versed and able to lead a diverse team forward. It is not for everyone. It truly takes individuals willing to be open and willing to continue to learn along with the team. All employees will then feel seen, heard, and valued, which is on that wish list, right? And lead to greater job satisfaction, which then, great job satisfaction means you want to stay and you retain your employee. A little bit about equity, and hopefully you have seen these images before. But by focusing on equity, you'll ensure fairness and impartiality in your process and your procedures. This provides all your employees with equal access to resources and opportunities within your organization. So I do want to say just a little bit about this. You know, often we think that being equal is really the approach to fairness. And in that first image, what you see is that there's a barrier and you want to solve it. So let's be fair, right? So we get the same for everyone, regardless of what they need, regardless of their abilities or skills or anything. We just give everybody the same and we say, okay, problem solved. But in reality, you can see there that the problem is only solved for only one of the individuals. You've given a bigger boost to the one who really didn't even need the help, and the one who truly needed the help is still not there. So it's really important to distinguish that equality and the equitable approach, right? The fair approach and the equitable approach. And sometimes they are the same, and that's wonderful. But it is important to recognize that we are all individuals, and that sometimes you will, in order to retain an individual, to really help them be seen, heard, and valued, is that you're going to have to see them where they're at, and what it is that they bring to you that makes them so valuable for you to then go ahead and keep them. In the second image, I like to include that one because that speaks to abilities, to sizes, and just a little bit more inclusive of the concepts of equality and equity. And again, if you were to Google these images, there's so many out there for you to really take a deeper dive into this. So inclusion and retention. So here, inclusion is a conscious and deliberate approach to create a workplace where difference is expected. It's nurtured, it's supported, and respected. So this is so important because once you have a team that begins to look different, to sound different, to bring you different voices, and you will not retain them unless you're able to create this inclusive environment where everyone then can feel that they belong. This creates a place where all feel they belong, especially individuals from historically marginalized communities. And if you feel you belong, that you're seen, you're heard, and you're valued, chances are you will stay. And I think that that's a really important message to really create that environment where it's expected, it's going to be nurtured, it's going to be supported, and we'll talk about how to do that in a second, and that it will be respected. So very, very important. So in order to bring this all together, we're going to look at the employee sort of life cycle for you so that you can see how it is that at each of these stages, you can really focus on how it is that you can be thinking about retention of the employee. And this starts even before you hire them. And I think that when we're in the process of hiring, we don't even think that retention has anything to do with it. But the thing is, when you're looking for a job, if you need a job, you're going to find a job. And especially in today's market, you will find it. But right now we can kind of be selective. So we're going to be looking for jobs that speak to us and that make us feel welcome, even at this stage, at the posting stage. So it is important then for you as the employer to really put time into crafting it, to thinking about, is this message really sending out? If this is this posting sending out the message, and is it conveying who we are? And is this going to bring us the individuals that we're looking for, and hopefully that they will feel welcome even at this stage. Okay, so let's look at it a little closer. Applicants look for commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. We're being told more and more that the 21st century applicant, this is what's important to them. They look throughout, not just in that boilerplate language that's required by law. That's that little box that we see on every application throughout. They're looking to find it throughout the description. So they're also going to look at your website. And on that website, they're going to be looking who are in leadership positions, right? They're going to be looking to see who is your CEO, who is your not only your CEO, but who's ahead of your finances, who is your HR director. All of these things, depending on your business, they're going to be looking to. And this is where representation comes in, right? Do they see themselves at those levels? And if not, many will look to see how high will someone like me get in this company. And so it's important for you to be aware of that and to be thinking about that. Not that you are able to do something about that today, but in the future, when these vacancies occur, for you to be thinking about how is it that I'm going to bring more representation into leadership positions? How do you address equity, diversity, and inclusion? Do you have a statement on your webpage? Do you address it in a different format? How quickly can they find that commitment to this? Do they have to go to a bunch of tabs and then drop down menus before they even get to these concepts from you? Or is this important enough to your company that it is clearly stated where it can be found immediately? Do you have a statement? Not necessary, but maybe you feel that you should have a statement, or maybe it's embedded and mentioned in your mission and your vision statements. So it's important for you to give this some thought, because that potential employee is looking for this. If they find what they're looking for, you're already closer to having them stay longer with you, because you're speaking to them in matters of equity, diversity, and inclusion. If you happen to have a committee on equity, diversity, and inclusion, do you have them listed? Are they visible? Is their chair given an opportunity or a little bio about the chair and their statement about why it's important for them to be chairing the committee? All of these little things are important. So not only find inclusive language throughout the posting, but also to highlight that you have potentially affinity groups there, right? To list the affinity groups on your website so that they're easily found for candidates that are looking for this. So that's your position description. Moving on, your search process. The candidate will benefit if you address these issues prior to the interview. Do you share goals with the committee? Do you have goals that this particular position that you need to meet for perhaps, for whatever the reason may be? Perhaps it's compliance, but are those shared with the committee so that the committee members are all aware of it on their search through the search process? Do you provide guidelines on how to address implicit bias for the committee members? Because otherwise, if you don't, what could happen is that they are having an interview with a candidate and this comes up, but there's no way of dealing with it. And the candidate will sense it. The candidate will feel it. So I repeat, if the candidate needs a job and you get to that offer stage, they may accept it, but the candidate already is thinking, wow, they may have an issue here with me, or they may have an issue with something that's important to me. What is the makeup of your search committee, right? And I think that there are many challenges here, because often many of our businesses, our corporations, our institutions are still predominantly white-facing, right? But are different voices and perspectives represented. So you have to give time for those perspectives and those voices to come through so that the candidates can see that. Who is asking your questions regarding diversity, regarding equity or inclusion? Hopefully you have a question crafted for the candidates that they can respond to. That shows that it's important to you and that you expect it to be important to them. So that candidate's already thinking, wow, that was a great question they asked me. This is a place I want to work. And that's what you want. You want that candidate to want to work there. Remember, the search process is both ways. They're finding out as much about their potential employer as you are trying to find out about your potential candidate and your employee. The candidate should leave the interview with a feeling for your approach to EDI. They should sense where you stand. They should sense that this is important, if it's important to you. If it's not, the candidate will sense it as well. So I'm not saying to create something that you maybe aren't there yet. You're not there exactly, but it's okay to be vulnerable and transparent and say, this is something that our company is learning about, and we're anxious to learn more about. And we welcome individuals that will help us move us along this trajectory. That sends a really good message to a candidate. Okay, let's go next. So the offer. So you might be thinking the offer is just about offering them the job and they either take it or don't take it. And you're right, that is really the bottom line. But here's where you have to be thinking about how you make this offer so that this candidate is thinking this is the place they want to be and stay. Hopefully a salary range was included in the posting, so the candidate already knows that this is the range that you're within and that they are comfortable being in that range. How you start this conversation conveys to the candidate how you value them and this work in particular that they are being hired for. So if the candidate has expressed interest already, obviously, right? And you have found this candidate to be the best candidate for the position, the one who will add the most value to the team that they will be joining, then you need to be somewhat vulnerable. And the more you can say that to the candidate, I think the better it will be to start at a level where a conversation can then ensue. You need to have a clear understanding of the benefits that apply to this candidate, this position that this candidate is applying for. Sometimes companies will list all their benefits, but not all the benefits are going to apply to every position. So it's important to be ready to answer for the candidate when they have their questions and be ready to really highlight the benefits. And hopefully you have found out a little bit about the candidate so that you can really highlight what's important to them, right? And that these are such things, of course, that pet insurance, which I mentioned earlier, right? But not only that, it's about those affinity groups that may exist, the other committees that may exist that may be of importance to a candidate where equity, diversity, and inclusion is really important to them. You know, here at the institution, we have a diverse community of practice that is open to everyone, including system-wide. That's a really important thing to be able to share with our candidates, to say that we have 9 affinity groups here, you know, and that the list will be provided to the candidate. And it's to all candidates, because we do not know at that stage who the partner is, who the children, if children are involved. We have absolutely no idea who this individual truly is. We don't know if they will have an affinity towards a certain group for whatever reason. So it's to be inclusive and to provide the entire list to everyone is the best practice that we recommend. You have to speak to what's important to them, what you feel is going to be important to them. And for our purposes, these are the topics of equity, diversity, and inclusion. You know, if you have a committee that they can join, that's another plus that you can mention. We have training here through the Office for Equity and Diversity at the University of Minnesota. It is offered free to all of our faculty, staff, and students. To mention that that's available to a candidate is extraordinary. Those certificates will run you thousands of dollars if you were to go ahead and look for a private one to attain a certificate in this area. Here, it's free. So that is something that should be included and should be spoken about to a candidate. You may not have that where you are in your employee, you know, in place of employment, but maybe it's something that could be offered, right? You need to be ready for a counter offer and be willing to entertain it and not be defensive, right? As long as it's within the range, or as long as it's a creative approach to it, it should be entertained. And then say, you need to think about it. I think it should be brought back to whoever it is. An offer should always be conveyed, and to the counter offer should always be conveyed, and then set a time where you can discuss it further, right? That shows that you value them, that you're seeing, that you're hearing what they're saying. So to shut it down immediately is already for them, okay, I get it. So it's important. Be creative if possible, right? Here at the U, it's a little bit difficult for us to be creative, but I do know that there are places where they will give you more time off, maybe not the raise that you wanted, but you're able to get something different. So it's to be creative with your employee. So the job offer conveys a lot. It conveys that you do see this individual, right? You may even at this point say, how it is that this is the salary now. You will be, what the probation period is, of course. Excuse me. But then also to inform them of the way you will review them. We review at the 1 year mark, but in between, that first year, you will have many opportunities for contact with your manager where you will be discussing how you're moving along, your trajectory here and how you're learning and the opportunities that are going to be available to you. So that's another thing that's very important. What opportunities will be available to them? Okay, so that's the offer. Onboarding. This says so much about us. I have heard employees tell me that at this stage, this is where they were ready to start looking for another job. Okay, because it was the way they were onboarded. And they knew that they had made a mistake, but they had accepted it and they were going to stick with it and get through, but they knew. For some, it comes immediately and they just don't, they resign or they immediately start looking for another position, but it's something that you need to be aware of. This is so important here. So prior to day one, if at all possible, a welcome communication and if possible with photos. And now that we're in Zoom world, right? Most of us have photos that we put on our little rectangle when we're away. So photos are easily available. And if you make sure that they're current, maybe a short little team bio about the individual, small message from each of the members, maybe swag if you have, the budget for it. We have 3 adult children and 2 of them got brand new jobs during the pandemic. And I couldn't believe the boxes of welcome that they received. And I thought to myself, wow, that's amazing. But they are private corporations and they have the finances to be able to support that sort of welcome. But it is important, I think. I have benefited from the coffee mugs, that's for sure. But anyways, that's something that sends a message. We can't wait to meet you. You're part of the team. This is who we are. This is the rest of the team. Because remember, up until then, they have only met the search committee and probably the supervisor. So they haven't really met the team that they're joining. And that's really important to give them that opportunity. Then day one, right? If working from home, have all necessary equipment arrive that day with time for setup and questions. Make sure that they're connected, right? Virtual introductions, lunch delivered, maybe a coupon. I don't know, swag again. I don't know what's available to you. I know that here at the university, this would be difficult, but there are many, many ways to be creative. If you're working on site, the parking pass, at least for that day, be sure you communicate, this is just for today, just go into the parking lot, make sure you bring it in, but it's going to be covered. Don't worry about it. Do not tell them that they have to submit for, payment or repayment. That would be not a welcoming thing to do. But again, have equipment ready, have introductions ready for that day, right? Potentially maybe go out to lunch with the individual and, whatever, pencils, all the paraphernalia that comes along with it if you're working in the office. But these are messages that you're conveying to your new employee that you truly want them here, that you care, right? Again, you could reiterate day one, but definitely leave it more for week one, which are introductions to frequent collaborators that they're going to have to meet. Who are the other individuals that you're going to be, working with, the other team members of the greater unit. Pair with individuals with institutional knowledge. That's really important so that transfer could begin to happen. Keep it casual at first. Don't make it so work process unless that it's necessary for that to occur immediately. But it's more for them to answer questions about the team, about how things are done. And remember, if this is someone that you brought in because you value their different perspective, their different voice that they're going to bring to your team, make sure that you allow that to happen. What we find is that we often say we want to hire someone that's going to bring something different to us, but as soon as they arrive, our goal is to assimilate and to help them become part of the team in a way that we don't see their difference anymore. So it's something that needs to be discussed with the team ahead of time, and just so that the stage is set, that we want to welcome so-and-so. They come to us with great knowledge. They're coming to us with a perspective that we know is going to add to us, that's going to make us stronger and add value to who we are. You know, and those words have to be said by the manager, the supervisor, in order for when the candidate arrives, the candidate senses that they are in the right place. This is where I belong. This is where I want to stay. I'm going to learn here. I'm going to contribute here. I'm going to be valued here. And not only that, but I'm going to be given equitable opportunities to advance my career here. That person will stay. Month one, check in, make sure connections are being made, especially those that will make the work go smoother. Talk about the cadence of check-ins, you know, how is it going to look moving forward? Ask how the online training is going. So many of us do that online training now because it seems to work, and you know, that's the way it's done now. Also check in here, that I think is a really important one, and I apologize for not putting it there, but give that list of affinity group, give that list of organizations and committees that you may think are important. And I would say for every new employee, it's not just an employee who is diverse. It is for all new employees, because I repeat, we don't know who the employee is or where they come from or who their partner is. So it's important for us to keep that open mind and to help them to join us and to see that they are important to us. Okay. Year one, stay interview. Here's a good, you know, we typically say never assume any, but assume they're going to stay, right? And say, you know, we're really excited, you know, at the 1 year mark, maybe do it at the 9 months, you know, do you decide where the right time is for you? But ask, you know, at that stage interview, we're so happy you're here. We've seen you contribute so much. Your questions are spot on. You know, you came back, we sent you to that, you know, conference here in the city, and you came back and shared with the team. You really, you know, added to who we are here. And next year we would like to send you to a different conference, you know, so I would like for you to find a conference that you feel would be valuable, not only for you, but for the team. And let's have a conversation about it, right? Ask what can be better, you know, where have we missed? What can we do better? Is there anything going on that we should be made aware of? And this is a really good place now to ask about the mentoring, which hopefully has been mentioned previously, but now you can set it up. Now they feel comfortable, hopefully. And now is where they really want to see their advancement, right? And connecting them with a mentor. And it could be that same individual, you connected them previously for institutional knowledge, but maybe it's someone completely different. Maybe you have noticed that this individual needs to grow in a different area, and that's who you're going to set them up with a mentor. And remember that successful mentoring occurs when both individuals are learning and both individuals are sharing, because that's when they create a relationship. And it's not that they have to be BFFs, that isn't, you know, what we're talking about, but it's that they create sort of that exchange of knowledge that really enhances a level of respect. And that's what really makes someone want to stay. Okay. So onboarding, very, very important how we do that in keeping our lens with that diversity, our equity and inclusion, and to do that for everyone, This is good for everyone. Okay. The next are assignments and our promotions. Okay, so this can be so telling to an employee. You're there, you've been there 2-3 years or whatever, wherever it is. And you have aspirations for that next level. You would like to be considered for that next level. And one of the things that I think is to really have an equitable approach and a process to this. So at those check-ins, you know, to not be afraid as the supervisor, as a manager, to say, let's just have a candid conversation. Where do you see yourself in the next 2-3 years? And hopefully the employee, you have established a relationship where they're going to say, you know, I see myself in that next level. I would like to, you know, be considered for that next level. And now this is the hard work, right? Because now you have to say, all right, give me some time, because I think you should take some time then. And let's have a conversation about how and what that would look like. Because I want to be sure that if that's where you want to go, that when you go for it, that you will be seriously considered, right? And I think that's really important. So to have that conversation, but then to really follow up, to really say, you know, we broached this. I'm going to set a meeting for next month. And at that meeting, I'm going to describe to you what the next level would look like for you, what we consider essentials for that next level, and then to have the conversation of which of these you may not have at this time, and what we can do to help develop them for you while you are here. If that does not say that you want this person to say, I'm not sure what does, but that does say to them, we want you to stay. We see your contributions. We see your ability, your skills, and we think and we know that you can move into that next step, right? But at the same time, we recognize that you may need something. So, and to say that you can gather and get that here while working, and we're going to help facilitate that, says a lot to an individual, to an employee. Be clear on how it works and what they need to do to be considered. Okay, this can't be none of that. You have to say, here are your strengths and have them listed. And here are your opportunities. And of these, you must have these two in order to be considered for the next level. In order to strengthen these two opportunities, here are some suggestions. And then if it's a stretch assignment, if it's training, whatever it may be, and then to be honest, right? To say, we will help support this. We can pay for this. This is something that we just don't have the capacity to support, but I encourage you, if you're able to do it. What we can do is we can help you, you know, take some time off or give you a longer lunch period, whatever it is, however it is that you can support them. All of that is saying to them that you really are trying to help them get to that next level. Ask what they have in mind here. Do not assume, because it's important for them to have a voice and to say, you know, I'm really comfortable where I'm at right now. What I prefer to do is work on my master's, or, you know, or I see myself shifting in the next few years. And I know that these positions are here at this organization. So I'm trying to get myself ready for that. And then say, wonderful. You know, let me set up an informal meeting with so-and-so that I know well over in that department. That is a way of retaining an employee in your organization, maybe not on your team, but to retain them in your organization is another amazing feat. So I couldn't commend you if that's a tactic that you take as well. Okay. See them, hear them, and value them. And sometimes I think we listen more to solve than to really learn and understand. right? You're hearing them and they're telling you this and you're already thinking, okay, I got to do this, this, and that. So before they're done, you already have 3 action items that you're going to share with them. But in the meantime of doing that, you weren't really listening. And they see it, they know it. So what they want is someone that's going to listen to them. And yes, at the end, have some action items, but even if you don't have them in the moment, but say, you know what, I really heard you and I'm processing and I'm going to come back with some action items. And let me give me till the end of the week and I'll send you an email and then let's set up a quick check-in for next week. All right. I think it is more important for you to listen, to hear them, right? To give them that sense of value that we all seek, than to come up with an action plan in the moment. So I couldn't stress that for you. It is so important because that speaks to retention, okay? When they are not selected, be ready to have that challenging conversation. It's not just, of course, there was a better candidate. Obviously, someone thought there was a better candidate, right? Someone that had whatever it is that filled that gap. But it is so important to have that conversation with them. If you are their supervisor, their manager, what is it that they did not have at this moment, but that you feel they can have potentially next time? Or it's something that maybe you feel that they will not have for you in that department, but that potentially they will have elsewhere. It's a very difficult conversation. I have been a supervisor, I have been a manager, and it is very hard to have. But after you have it and the air is cleared, you will see that they come to terms with it. You come to terms with it, and hopefully they stay. It's not easy. So you really, I think that's a conversation that requires some practice. Have clear steps on what is expected, right? If it is going to be a stretch assignment, you're sort of giving it to them because this will help them get ready for that next step. Tell them, you know what, we cannot let this one not succeed. So it's not that I don't trust you, but just at the beginning, let's have some frequent check-ins. So be clear as to why you're doing it, right? And then as you see them take off, then you say, okay, we're good. You go, we're good. All right. Be as equitable as possible at every step. Do not give those assignments that are going to position people for promotions to the same people all the time. Be sure that they are evenly distributed. Your employees see it. So it's important for you to also be able to see it. Okay, so equity always throughout the process. The mentoring must be personal. And by personal, I don't mean that you have to know anything personal about them, but it's not bureaucratic. It's not obligatory either. Equitably offered. Right? It has to be that people come to it willingly, both the mentor and the mentee. Often the mentees are the ones that are more willing to enter these relationships. And I know that we sometimes struggle finding the right mentors or even finding mentors. And I understand that, but it is an important aspect of retention. And nothing says to an employee that we value you than to grab someone that you already value and say, we want you to spend time with this person. And we want you to really engage with them. And we want you to learn from them as much as they're going to learn from you. All right. So retention rates were significantly higher for mentees, 72%, and for mentors, 69%, than for employees who did not participate at only 49%. All in an in-depth study, case study by Sun Microsystems and Forbes magazine. And all of this you have in your resources, so no worries. Cornell University School of Industrial and Labor Relations found that mentoring programs boosted minority representation at the management level by 9% to 24%, compared to -2% to 18% with other diversity initiatives. So mentoring really has an impact. The same study found that mentoring programs also dramatically improve promotion and retention rates for minorities and women. 15% to 30% as compared to non-mentored employees. So we have the data that's supporting that these type of programs really work. So if you don't have a mentoring program, I encourage you to consider one, to look into how to start one. And it's a benefit for all. And I see that, oh my goodness, we're almost at time. So I want to be respectful. Oh, look, it's my recap. Excellent. So again, I repeat, retention is critical. It's critical in so many levels. Yes, of course, the cost to an institution, to a company, to a corporation, but it's also critical because it speaks to our well-being, cost savings, well-being, and team morale. And if we can improve on that, our well-being and our team morale, people want to stay. Remember, we've all heard it. We don't leave our jobs. We leave our managers and individuals who cannot create that for us or help create it for us. Focusing on your EDI initiatives, your equity, your diversity, and your inclusion will help with your retention. Consider how you post. What is it that you're saying, right? What does that website look like? Because they're going to go there whether you think so or not. What do your LinkedIns look like? Because they're going to look up the leadership individual LinkedIns. What is your search process like? Re-examine it, every step of it. Make sure that when that committee is there, they're ready to welcome whoever that candidate is. Make sure that your offer process is, for one, respectful, that it's not going to be defensive, and that you're going to be willing to really listen to what they need and be ready to share those benefits, right? Be ready to share those benefits with them. Your onboarding day one, week one, month one, year one, really look at it as a program, not just, oh, it's day one. Oh my gosh, you've been here 2 weeks. I haven't had coffee with you. You know, you really have to look at it as a program for you to make it successful. Promotions and making assignments, extremely important. And again, if you're able to create a mentoring program, kudos, kudos, kudos to you. And feel free to reach out to me at any time for anything. Here are resources that I used. And I'm going to pass it back to, yep, okay. Shanta, thank you, Shanta, you're back. Thank you, everyone. You've been a great audience. I feel it.
Thank you so much, Patricia. And thank you for so many great examples on how
questions.
About how we can have some strategies in our organization. So yeah, we're going to move on to the questions now. So folks have any questions, please use the Q&A option, and I'll bring those over to Patricia here. So we do have a few here. We'll see how many we can get through. So I do apologize in advance if I don't hear your question, but thank you so much for joining again today. So our first question is, how do you coach up colleagues that listening is important? We have a culture where only a couple of people are allowed to talk, senior level. How do we let them know they need to listen to other people at the table?
There's some really good resources out there just that focus on listening. My email is provided, and I encourage you, just reach out to me and I can share those with you. Listening is crucial. I mean, you know, just think of our children, right? They will cry because we don't listen to them. And I think as adults, unfortunately, we don't cry anymore, but we feel that. We feel that people are not listening to us. And inside is this sense of not being valued. It is so, so important. Thank you. That's a great question.
Yes. And I'll do this next question too. So our company is fairly small and flat, 2 owners and 4 department heads in marketing. Do you have any resources for developing advancement opportunity structures?
You know, it is really difficult when you're small. It is a challenge. And you have to also realize that you may lose people. You may lose people because of the smallness of it, but it is so important for you to create that atmosphere of belonging where they are valued and where they see themselves, because when they leave, you will not have trouble finding new candidates because they will bring them to you. Because of the goodwill that they will speak of you, people will come to you. You will become a company that people want to work at, and work with. So definitely, even though it's small, and as far as resources for those individuals, it may be just, you know, having that conversation. Where do you see yourself next, and helping them through that trajectory.
Great. Thank you so much, Patricia. So I think that's what we're going to have for questions today. So I'll just speak about the slide you have up here. As I mentioned earlier, we'll send a link to a webinar recording within a week of today's webinar. If you enjoyed this webinar and want to dive deeper into this topic, there is a list of upcoming courses on the slide, as well as the college's contact information if you'd like to learn more information. Thanks again so much, Patricia, and thank you everyone for joining today, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, everyone. And please do feel free to reach out to me. My email is at the bottom of the last slide there. And with that, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.